Well, buckle up.
Back in the old time machine.
13th century. Texture, taste.
Very fishy.
Preservatives.
Cornish pasties.
Oh my god, I've never even thought of that. The themes of empire, mission, inheritance, and destiny.
Hello and welcome back to What the Food, the podcast that uncovers the history of the world through food. My name is Miles Dickinson. As always, I'm here with Andy Cantor and Dom Gray, and welcome to Baguettes and Bicycles, the saga of Vietnam's Bánh Mì.
Requested, our first ever listener requested episode.
We've had some requests before, we just ignored them. And this is the first one where we've been like, yeah, good idea. No, joking, it's actually genuinely our first one. Please keep them coming. But yeah, no, this was requested from Sarah Estabrook, who's emailed us. She is a big fan of the show. So yeah, we appreciate you getting in touch. And yeah, Bánh Mì, we're here to cover it.
Shout out Sarah. This one's for you. Yeah, Bánh Mì. Talk about, we're gonna dive into one of Vietnam's most beloved exports. Bánh Mì. Picture a warm, crisp baguette with a soft, chewy inside, layered with pickled carrots, fresh coriander, spicy chili, maybe a bit of marinated pork belly in there, maybe a slather of pate.
Well,
It's a great sandwich, isn't it? It's fucking great.
it is good.
So good.
It's a yummy one.
Yeah.
It's just best bits of both worlds coming together.
Yeah. You don't regret. I don't think I've ever regretted a Bánh Mì.
No, don't get silly with it.
No, I think the only bit that sometimes can get in the way of a good banh mi is if the quality of your pork belly is not good. I've had some chewy bits of pork belly in a sandwich in a banh mi before. Where was it?
It's actually round your house, mate.
It was the one you made. No,
Was it at the Banh Mi place in Kirkgate Market?
no, that
Leeds?
one slapped every time. Yeah, that one in Kirkgate Market is very good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I'll give them a free shout out.
Yeah, but yeah, the banh mi itself is more than just a meal. It's a story of resilience and creativity born from Vietnam's pretty complex colonial history. The fusion of kind of the French bread and kind of the bold Vietnamese flavors was perfected in the streets of Saigon. So let's get into it, shall we? Let's explore how a simple baguette met fish sauce and pickled vegetables, creating a sandwich loved around the world. So, French baguette, how did it end up in Vietnam?
Colonialism.
Yeah.
'Cause it doesn't belong there. Does not belong there.
So the story involves trade, conquest, and, as we just said, a hefty dose of imperial ambition. So it started largely in the 17th century when the European powers, mainly the Portuguese, arrived in Southeast Asia looking for trade.
Okay.
France. Money.
They've got a hankering for coriander.
Yeah, they do, yeah. So they've taken to the seas. Big quest for...
I've got this flavour in my mind and it's a little herb.
Yeah.
Let's just get on our ships and we'll just smell it out.
Yeah. For hundreds of years, we've been lacking the flavour of... Oh, I've gone German with that.
You've gone German.
I'm still on the Hindenburg here.
That's crashed and burned last week.
Oh, God. Yeah, they're all gone. But yeah, they're after coriander. That's the joke.
That's the punchline, is they're looking for coriander.
You got to work out the complexity of the joke yourself. It's in there somewhere. Sort it out.
There's the ingredients of the joke.
Yeah.
Put it together yourself.
Yeah. So the Portuguese are out there spreading their fucking tentacles over everything within Asia. But of course, the French, never to be outdone, soon joined in the party, sending missionaries, especially Jesuits, to spread
What did
their
you
religion.
call me?
Cheese it.
Just completely destroyed your flow.
Derailed
What
it.
do you call me?
So they're sending Jesuit, spread the Catholic faith. You know, they're spreading it among the Vietnamese. That's the big goal. By the 19th century, France very much had bigger plans. You see, Vietnam was more than just a potential kind of hub for their religion to be spread. It was a gateway to Southeast Asia's resources and trade routes. Cast your minds to the map of Earth. You see Asia over in that part of the world that Asia is in. And Vietnam, the way that it kind of, the space that it occupies, it kind of cradles kind of Cambodia all along the coast, connecting
Around the
to
outside.
Thailand as well. It's a perfect kind of location for kind of trade and access to the Orient.
So when they first went there, it was a religious purpose. They were trying to spread Catholicism over there initially.
Exactly right.
Always starts with the religion, mate.
Yeah.
And
So
is
they
that
get-
tactical, or is that just literally purely because they want to share? Is it like get the people indoctrinated in the cult of Catholicism first, and then when we invade, they're kind of already on side at that point?
It's less about like getting them ready so that when we invade, it's going to be easier. It's more just about they believe like obviously religion isn't crazy important in our modern world for some people. But back then it was like the be all and end all. It was like the first thing they thought of when they woke up, and the last thing they thought about when they went to bed. So getting more people ingrained within that religion was like their mission, their goal.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, we're going to get them in the same religion of us so that they will give us loads of money and we'll
it's just
be able to invade
it's
easy.
what life's about, isn't it? At that point.
Get
Give them
more
the
followers.
saviour. Yeah. Save them from
Followers to the shepherds of the Lord.
That's it. Cheers to that.
I mean, if you get Bánh Mi's, I'm lining up. I'm taking the blood of Christ. I don't mind.
Yeah. Very, very easy to make a cross with 2 Bánh Mi's.
Fiddle me as much as you want, but give me a baguette at the end of it.
Just make sure I leave with the full belly.
Just give me the pate.
So the French eyed the fertile rice fields of Vietnam to feed as the perfect way to feed their empire, and saw Vietnam very much as like a strategic foothold. So they've gone through kind of the whole missionary sending and religious side of things. Now kind of the more colonial ambitions have crept in. And they've started to be like, well, these guys are fucking uncivilized natives. We're highly strung European monarchy that's got all the power. We deserve this land. We're going to civilize these people. So in 1858, Emperor Napoleon III sent warships to attack Da Nang after a couple of local authorities started imprisoning some French missionaries.
So stuff's gone a little bit sour there.
It's going a little
We're
bit
just
sour.
trying to teach you about the Lord. And then they're just doing them up. It's not right. They're probably well within the rights to lock up some colonizers.
If you're living like a harmonious life, in Vietnam, you've got all this amazing fresh ingredients, lovely locals, great weather, and then French people turn up.
Doesn't bear thinking about, does it?
Anyone else? And I just hand over the keys. But to
French.
Not them. Not them.
You're led on a beach and just a ship full of beret-wearing bellends just show up.
Hide the coriander. They're coming.
God. But no, seriously, it was probably really, really awful time for them.
Oh, mate, we're going to get into some horrendous shit. Yeah, it was really, really poor, yeah.
It's about to get really serious.
Yeah. Let's get into it. So Emperor Napoleon III, he sent some troops to kind of help these missionaries that have been imprisoned in Da Nang. Diplomacy quickly gave way to gunfire, and within a few years, France had claimed southern Vietnam, now known, or at the time known, as Cochin China.
Right. So when you say Napoleon helped them, he took the Bible out of their hands and gave them a musket, essentially.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. Or he sent people with muskets to free the Bible wielding missionaries. That was probably more. Yeah, because the missionaries wouldn't fight, I don't think.
No, they didn't believe in violence.
No. Yeah, it's a different set of people.
Yeah, exactly. Different set of people. Same faith.
Different niche.
Yeah, same beliefs, same beret wearing bellend.
Same froggy Frenchness. But just a different angle.
Just a different angle. Exactly.
Got you.
By 1887, French Indochina was born, encompassing Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos.
Wow, okay.
So they've really kind of they've gone in there now. They've sacked off the whole missionary style of approach and kind of spreading the French way that way.
No pretending now. The gloves are off.
Gloves are off. These natives have started fucking us over. We're going to take them by force now. And we're going to take more of an empire, more land than we had previously.
Right.
So Napoleon very much saw this part of France, this kind of mission, as a civilizing mission. This is classic of kind of the colonial era. It reeks of arrogance, and it's like, these guys are uncivilized. We are civilized. We're going to come and help them. That's the way they saw it, right?
It's kind of similar to the British invading India, isn't it, as well?
Massively,
I think that was the kind of same angle that they were going for, wasn't it?
Same with the Spanish.
Let's bring those up to modern day.
Oh yeah, but we were fine there. Come on, let's not drag the British. We were doing Lord's work there. Anyway, back to the horrible Frenchies.
Look, we stole
really
all
horrible.
their countries' jewels. We destroyed their economy. We merged tribes that shouldn't have been together. We fucked everything up.
Yeah,
but we gave them trains, guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You've seen the pictures of the trains. They love them. Look how many people get on. They love them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost as if there's not enough, but I think there's loads. I think they just love getting on one.
They just love getting on one.
Yeah.
We definitely left them enough of that infrastructure. And also we continue to, help out with that.
Yeah, we're all mates, sir.
Yeah, shout out trains. Shout out Thomas.
But yeah, it sounds like a similar guys, doesn't it? It's like, we're coming to this country, we're going to modernize this nation, teach them the ways of civilized folk.
Exactly.
But really, they just kind of want the land, they want the power, they want the stuff.
Yeah, For sure. A quote that we have directly from Napoleon III himself gives us a pretty good understanding of kind of what the French people at the time thought they were doing in Vietnam.
I say the French colonial policy, the policy of colonial expansion, the policy that has taken us under the empire to Saigon, to Indochina, is a policy of civilization.
Beautiful.
Wow, so they're convinced that they're doing the right thing.
Well, I just thought, he's a leader. He's got a way of saying things. Yeah. But he's saying, it's colonial expansion. It's going to be a policy of civilization. We're helping these people. Don't worry.
Yeah, we're all mates here, is what he's saying.
Exactly.
But
unsurprisingly, the Vietnamese were less than thrilled by this foreign takeover of these fucking big European foreheads coming into their beautiful paradise of a land.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't be thrilled, would you?
No. They weren't just losing land either, the Vietnamese. They were kind of facing the upheaval of their entire culture and way of life. The French didn't arrive gently. They imposed their language, their religion, and a system that kind of turned Vietnamese farmers into tenant labourers on their own land. Classic colonial setup. French reap the profits, living comfortably, while the Vietnamese work for scraps in the fields, mines, and factories.
So a farmer might have owned his land, and then when the French came, they were like, now it's our land and you're renting it from us.
This is our land now.
Yeah, and you're renting it, so you can still work it. We need you to work it because we don't have the means to do that, but you're going to pay us.
You're going to pay us either, maybe not necessarily money, but they might have paid them money, but they'll definitely be paying them in grains of rice that the French will then use to feed their army, which will then mean there's less food to go around for the Vietnamese people.
Yeah.
And there's also less money within the economy because the Vietnamese people aren't selling the rice, they're giving it to the French.
And the French are just taking all of that and they're exporting it then, aren't they? They're taking it to other parts of the world with trade, and it's not being reinvested into the infrastructure of Vietnam at that point, is it? But it's crazy because every country's got its own culture that's constantly evolving, and they'd have been, even if it's less apparent on the surface, they'd have had their own technological advances kind of occurring within the way they farm or the things that they're learning, even if it's I don't know, a lot less apparent. But then as soon as a foreign entity comes in on that scale, then it just shatters all that progress they've made as a unique society, and it's all that hard work's kind of gone then, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right, mate. You're right. Jules Ferry, a French statesman during the kind of early years of colonization, puts it this way.
I repeat that the superior races have a right because they have a duty. They have the duty to civilize the inferior races. But in our time, I maintain that the European nations acquit themselves with generosity, with grandeur, and with sincerity of this superior civilizing duty.
Doesn't sound great, does it?
Doesn't sound great. In the modern times, horrendous stuff. But at the time, they really believed this. This isn't the right wing just thinking this kind of ideology. This is most people in Europe believe that kind of these areas have inferior, kind of uncivilized people that need Europeans, not us. I wasn't part of it. Need Europeans to go in, help them sort their lives out, get their stuff intact.
Yeah.
And then they'll be fine. Then they'll prosper.
Well, it's more than that. It's your duty. If you're in that position, it's your duty to do that, to go around and kind of share everything.
It's a bit mad, isn't it? These places don't want that. Trying to make you feel guilty for not fulfilling it.
Yeah.
Go out there and
like you said, you can tell from the terminology that they're using how kind of just ingrained that way of thinking is at that time. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of built into the way they see the world, isn't it?
Yep.
So you can't blame them.
Whoa, now. Just right at the end there, you just went a bridge too far. So you know what? They bear no responsibility for their actions. And in fact, I personally absolve
would have done the same.
Oh, God.
As ever with kind of Vietnamese resistance to any opposing faction, it was fierce. The Vietnamese know how to fight, as we'll learn later on as well, as the Americans learned in the 60s and 70s. Quite
absolutely
quickly. They didn't just kind of bend over and let the French get all up in upside, They went around it. They didn't do that.
That was an interesting way of phrasing that one.
Yeah. Get my words out.
Yeah.
No, you got them out loud and clear. The Vietnamese didn't just bend over and let the French fuck the shit out of the back of them. All right. They put up a fight. Well, Andy, okay, yeah, fair enough.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, now you know, right? Now you know.
Yeah, paint me a picture with your words. Yeah.
Message received. So throughout French occupation, rebellions and uprising were very much constant thorns in the colonist side. And by the late kind of 19th century, you've got many Vietnamese leaders rallying around independence, being inspired by both traditional values and kind of ironically like the Enlightenment ideals that the French themselves had introduced.
Not very enlightened.
No, not very enlightened. But you've got nationalist kind of sentiment growing, and this very much fueled underground movements and uprising for the local Vietnamese.
Are we talking physically underground here? Because I know they do have a history of going into tunnels. Are we talking metaphorically at this point?
I think metaphorically at this point, yeah. I'm not sure they're digging tunnels. I mean, maybe they are. Maybe they are.
And that was a key tactic to beating the Americans, right?
It was, but that was more because they were forced out into the jungles to avoid the sheer amount of ordnance that was being bombed, like, thrown on them by the Americans. I'm not sure the French during the 19th century are dropping napalm.
No, there's no need to go under tunnels at that point.
There's no need. Yeah, there's no need. Maybe even tree houses would be better, actually. Get above the Frenchmen. If there's anything you know about Frenchmen is that they can't look up. So you want to get up high against a Frenchman.
Yeah, the necks just don't allow it, does it?
No, they don't allow it. Laden down with butter. You can't raise their heads up.
Laden down with butter.
Yeah, well, the butter sack is in the back of the neck and they can't squish it.
Butter sack. Oh my God.
I need that butter whenever on my fingers. Give me baguette. Neck butter.
So they're kind of rebelling at this point. They've got little like pockets of kind of factions that are kind of growing more hate for the French, and there's a bit of unrest growing. I imagine.
Exactly. But obviously during this whole period, with the French occupation and kind of the French pushing their culture and society on the Vietnamese, you've obviously got an influx of French people, and French people want to eat French food. So you've got an influx of kind of French style cooking coming into the mix, including bread. Mm-hmm. They do love it. So the word bánh mì actually means bread in Vietnamese.
Oh, really? Just literally bread?
Just bread. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Wow. And it is dates all the way back to as early as the 1830s. So we can kind of safely assume that the French very early on started importing kind of French food for the troops that wanted to eat local, comfortable things that made them happy, and forget that they were in a really fucking hot, sticky country in full military gear with a shitty flintlock rifle trying to deal with a shitload of natives. Gave them a little mouthful of home. So yeah, definitely there as early as the 1830s.
Good climate for Peruvian bread. Nice and warm.
Nice and warm, but as we'll see, it wasn't great. Wasn't actually great because French bakeries that started to open had to churn out fresh bread. I think they baked twice a day or 3 times a day because the heat meant that the bread didn't last as long.
So really? It was going bad quicker.
The tropical heat kind of dried it out.
Shit, okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting. Right. Did they have any form of bread in Vietnam before the French arrived? No. I'm guessing there's not really a flour. It's rice, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, rice.
They don't really have flour.
I mean, they got rice flour.
Yeah.
Which they do start to use, we'll come to, but very much wheat that's used in the initial kind of bread that's in there. So they didn't have any.
So with rice flour, you can kind of like roll that out into like pancakes and stuff, can't you? Like really thin, like wraps, I guess, and like more pita style things.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're not really having like proper fluffy loaves or anything.
No, no, for sure. I managed to find actually a poem from a bloke called Nguyen Dinh Che, who was a Vietnamese. That was pretty good. He was a Vietnamese poet who was a nationalist and anti-colonial kind of figurehead. He actually mentions bánh mì in his 1861 poem, which was created for a funeral memorial for a load of troops that died during a battle, an uprising against the French. The poem is called Van Te Niga Si Can Guac. Definitely not that. I translated it, or managed to use Google to translate it. I didn't actually sit there and work out all the words myself. And here is the feature of baguette in his poem.
Why live with the left-wing army, throwing away incense, pushing the poison table, seeing it makes you sadder? Why live with the evil army, sharing sweet wine, eating bread, hearing it makes you feel even more ashamed? It is better to die and gain the enemy's favour and return to follow one's ancestors than to suffer the first Western call. Living with the barbarians is very miserable.
Well, he hates it there, doesn't he?
Doesn't mince his words, does he?
Doesn't. Calls the French barbarians.
Yeah. Which is ironic because that's probably what the terminology that they're using to describe the Vietnamese.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, what was the title of the poem translated? Do you have that?
With the marble.
Codex out.
The French are shit.
Just proper on the money.
The title of the poem is Funeral Oration for the Martyrs of Can Guac. So yeah.
Oh, nice.
It's
Okay.
literally just the name of
The martyrs.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. That one just hit different for you, did it? Yeah. I would have called it that too. Yeah,
That's
nice
a banger
one,
of
yeah.
a title, actually.
yeah, that's true.
I mean, it just says what it does on the tin, right?
But despite the resentment, it took root, the baguette. It very much took root. So
I mean, you can hate the player, but you can't hate the game. Like, a baguette is good, even if, like, you hate the people who are making it. Like, still, you're still a baguette, innit?
Well, this is it. It's versatile and, it can work with lots of different flavors. So it's only going to provide a different angle for Vietnamese to experiment with ingredients that they've already got.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So due to the price of kind of imported wheat at the time, baguettes and just bread in general was very much originally a treat for the colonists. It symbolized, European luxury, and only the French would eat it in the beginning. Like I said, the French bakeries kind of churned out fresh bread daily, and as one 1910 account by an A. Jourdain in Impressions d'Indochine describes.
Indochine.
In the morning in Saigon, one sees natives on every street having a café au latte or café noir with half a roll, which is petit pain.
Which is a petit pain.
It's a petit pain.
Half a roll, petit pain.
Petit pain.
Right. Okay. So natives are now having little mini baguettes as part of their kind of daily morning ritual. You're starting to see it kind of blossom.
Yeah. So this is a 1910 account. So by the 1830s is when we first see kind of the name Bánh Mì start to appear. And then by 1910, it's very much the natives have kind of adopted this kind of French culture of the coffee at the cafe and having a little half roll.
Oh, I guess you're right. It's not just the petit pans. It's like you said, it's the cafe culture and it's the drinking coffee as well. That's all stuff that's kind of
massive
come over from the French.
A little bit not related, but coffee. Where did it come from first? Maybe this is a complete different episode, but like, was it an Asian thing first or
Africa? I think it's
Africa,
or like Middle East. I think.
Okay,
that's where the culture.
Arabica bean.
Yeah, because it was. I think there's the story of the origin of coffee is that a shepherd. I think it might be Middle East. An Arab shepherd with his flock of goats were walking through the mountains, and he noticed his goats eating coffee. What turned out to be coffee beans.
Oh shit!
And
then they were fucking running around like crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Was it?
So he took. Like fucking cliffs. They can climb cliffs already, but these were fucking straight
running up,
just walking up.
Mabel, fuck.
Fucking hell, Mabel. What did you just eat, Mabel? You fucking wild, Mabel.
So the story is seeing the how the goats reacted. He harvested some himself.
Well,
yeah.
We should do coffee as an episode. I think that'll be an
And that
interesting
guy's name was John Starbuck.
and he flew back to Seattle the next morning and made Starbucks.
He was also a mermaid.
There's maybe a whole episode in itself then. Sorry, didn't mean to derail, just was thinking
No.
Where did it come from? What's
No,
it
you're
about?
absolutely right. And I was lucky enough to go to Vietnam a few years ago, and coffee is very important to them.
Yeah,
There's a
didn't you
load
get
of
me the
Got me a bag as well.
weasel
Yeah, I did.
poo?
Weasel poo coffee,
Well,
yeah.
Weasel poo coffee.
I got
Did you
Miles
not
a
get
nice
you a
bag.
bag of that, Matt? Oh.
Yeah, mine was great. We really enjoyed ours.
Yeah, it's
I've got a
very-
picture on my phone of the front of it. So when you next go back, you can get me some more.
Get some more. But they love it. They take it very seriously. There's loads of coffee shops still out there. Coffee culture is very big out there. And it stems from this. Stems from the French. But as we know, culinary crossovers rarely stay exclusive. So during World War I, disruptions of wheat imports led bakers to begin mixing in inexpensive rice flour to the dough, which actually made the bread fluffier, which is why the kind of bread roll that you use, or you most in an ideal world want to use for a banh mi, is not actually just a standard baguette from a French bakery. It's it's actually a Vietnamese bakery, which uses a mix of wheat flour and rice flour to obtain still the kind of crispy texture on the outside, but a more fluffier inside.
It's a bit more elastic, isn't it? It's not.
It's a bit more elastic.
It doesn't crumble as much. You can kind of manipulate it a bit more without.
Yeah, which is perfect for when you're putting in like wetter ingredient.
Yeah,
which definitely. Is within a banh mi, right? Because it's fluffier, so it's gonna soak up more of that pickle from the pickled carrots and the pickled veg,
fish sauce and
fish sauce, exactly, and the marinade from the pork belly and the pate as well.
And they're usually a bit wider, aren't they, than a traditional baguette?
Yeah.
So again, more surface area for those kind of ingredients that you're cramming in there, I imagine.
Exactly.
I fucking love banh mi, man. I'm getting on Deliveroo after this. And that brings us to our first sponsor, Deliveroo. Get a discount.
So yeah, the baguette is very much becoming Vietnamese. You know, it's becoming a staple for the locals that are enjoying kind of the French style of food. Many of the shops that are baking this bread, like I said, are baking twice a day because of the hot, humid climate makes the bread go stale quite quickly. And obviously, you know, you've got all of this bread. You're going to want to put some stuff in it, right? You got all this other stuff. Why don't we just combine the two together, you know?
And I guess the French were having it with cheese a lot of the time, weren't they?
Yeah, cheese,
and they're
meat.
not probably eating much cheese in Vietnam.
No, not too much. No, not too much. And also, if you think about it, they would have been eating a lot of rice and a lot of rice with meats anyway. The Vietnamese I'm talking about, they would have eaten a lot of rice and meats or veg or whatever. Now we're not eating so much rice, but we're still eating. Well, now we're eating the bread. We've still got these meats. Let's combine them together, just like we did with the rice. So soon, this kind of crusty loaf was slathered with pate or butter, packed with meats, herbs, and pickled vegetables from the local markets. And what started out as a colonial delicacy became a Vietnamese staple available from street vendors everywhere.
I mean, when I first had a banh mi or learnt about what they were, the pate element kind of threw me a little bit because it kind of feels like it doesn't really go. You've got all these like fresh ingredients that feel very zingy and they're going to pop in your mouth. You've got like pickles and then pate just feels a bit left wing at that point. But when I then had a banh mi, I was like, nah, this totally makes sense.
It works, doesn't it?
It just marries it all together. Yeah, it's weird. I would never just think to have pate on a sandwich, but in a banh mi, when it's got those other flavors that kind of cut through the richness of pate, because I think that's it, isn't it? Pate is like super rich and it's very fatty, and usually, you know, I have it on like a cracker at Christmas and have a little piece of it or something. But when you think you're going to have a sandwich with it completely splattered all over it. But yeah, those fresh ingredients kind of cut through that then and kind of you know, mellow it out a bit.
It's also quite cheap to make pate, so I think that was probably a big thing, which is like ground up meat in it.
Yeah, and you're kind of using like liver and stuff, aren't you? Which you know, kind of less sort of after parts of the meat.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I guess it is quite economical then. Maybe there's that aspect of it as well. It was kind of cost effective.
But it wasn't all baguettes. You know, I did manage to find. We're not saying that baguettes come in and fucking rice just disappears. It's still very much a thing, as noted by a bloke called H. Riliac Cochin. He writes in 1910 that
the natives loved our bread at first, and then they go back to their rice.
Simple. Does what it says on the tin, doesn't it?
Gives what you want.
They loved our bread at first. I mean, you know, too much of any good thing, it's not a good thing. Maybe they absolutely gorged themselves on baguettes, got horrendous stomach cramps and thought, Jesus, we need to go back to rice for a bit here.
Maybe. Variety is a spice of life, after all.
Tis. That's what they say.
So Vietnam's resistance continued into the 20th century, leading to the First Indochina War. And in 1954, Vietnam ended up defeating France at the Dien Bien Phu. But by then, it was too late. The baguette was firmly a part of Vietnamese culture, an unexpected remnant of colonial rule. But luckily, with kind of Vietnamese ingenuity, it transformed into something new, something that we know, the beloved banh mi that we know today. It's definitely been on a journey and it's grown.
You might as well grab what you like from their invasion before you kick them out.
Yeah, if you get rid of them and you can keep their good carbs, then it's actually an extra win on top of beating them and keeping your land. Like taking something from them.
Yeah.
So after nearly a century of French rule, Vietnam was on the brink of a new era. The First Indochina War had ended, leaving Vietnam divided by the Geneva Accord into the communist north and the anti-communist south. Vietnam has effectively been split in two. Okay, kind of like Korea in a way, in the way that was split up. So that's where we're at. The communist north, anti-communist south. Vietnam split in two. This split, as you can imagine, sent shockwaves through Vietnamese society because you effectively just split the country in two, right? You just halved everyone. Yeah. It triggered mass migration south because people fleeing the communist regime in the north.
A fair approach.
And as ever, this movement wasn't just political. This movement of people reshaped recipes, cooking styles, culture. You've got flavors from the north mingling with and merging with flavors in the south because, you know, slightly different climates in various different areas, different kind of land mass and crop yields and things like that. So you've got this mass flux of movement within the country. And as ever, when people move, they want to take a slice of their home with them. Among these migrants was Lee Ming Nyok and Ngon Thi Tin. When they moved, they opened a small bakery in Saigon called How May.
I help you.
That's some white people comedy right there. Nice.
Yeah, absolutely horrendous. I felt bad even saying it, but here we are.
Some white people comedy.
Oh dear. It's not big and it's not clever.
It's not big and it's not clever. It's probably not even pronounced How May.
The joke goes back as far as mispronouncing the name to begin with.
So this very helpful bakery was modest, but by 1958, they were making something extraordinary. So they'd used a French baguette that had become popular in Saigon, and they started filling it with pork belly, pate, pickled vegetables, and herbs. The Bánh Mì Thit was born, and this is very much the banh mi that's kind of what we think of when we think of banh mi. So a quote that I managed to find from Madeleine Nguyen, who was a writer, or is a writer. Don't think she's dead. If she is, R.I.P. If not, keep going, Queen.
You could say that about anyone.
Yeah,
if they're dead, R.I.P. If they're still going, Queen.
This is what she had to say about the combo that the helpful bakery was producing.
The classic version of the banh mi is a display of adoption and creation, mimicry and originality, a melding of two cultures and two palates to create something that is inherently Vietnamese.
So this is where it gets a bit confusing. Like the banh mi is both the sandwich and also just bread. So that's a bit confusing. But
yeah, they made it hard for themselves there, haven't they?
Yeah,
can I have 3 banh mi's? 2 an actual banh mi, 1 a banh mi. Thank you. What am I making you? Do you want the bread or the sandwich?
Yeah. I'll just give you the bread and here's the fillings. Sort yourself out.
Do it yourself.
Yeah. In the Vietnamese language, they use like the banh mi dit and there's like more words for it.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas we, as kind of arrogant Westerners, are just, I'll have a banh mi, please.
Yeah, we can only manage that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like walking into a place and being like, I'll have a baguette. And they're just like, well, do you want anything in it? Like, do you want a baguette with cheese or like, you know? Yeah. Exactly.
But her quote's interesting because she's saying that, it ultimately is something that's inherently Vietnamese. And I kind of agree with it because although a lot of people say, well, no, it's half the French because of the baguette. No, the Vietnamese deserve that as their own because that's the kind of tax that they've taken from those years of, they've worked bloody hard for it. And yeah, it's like they're kind of owning that version of the French baguette and making it their own.
Yeah, for sure.
And they deserve to do that. So yeah, it's bloody Vietnamese, all right?
It's bloody Vietnamese, and it's a symbol of resilience, blending French influence with very much Vietnamese flair. Definitely, it's not fine dining, it's an affordable street food that filled you up without emptying your pockets.
You can eat it with one hand whilst you're on a little moped riding around Vietnam.
What are you doing here, mate?
It's a banh mi, all right? And I'm on my Piaggio.
Piaggio.
Home plates out.
Yeah. Got my helmet on.
I can tell you now, there's no way you can drive around the streets of Vietnam with a banh mi in your hand eating it. It's the most chaotic place ever, bro.
Yeah, it's literally the most
accepted.
It's the most chaotic place I've ever been in this world.
No, the banh mi was cheap, quick, and convenient. Perfect for the busy city life. Saigonites fell in love with it. And
Saigonites, what a cool name for where.
Cool, innit?
What are you? I'm a Saigonite.
Saigonites. It's cool, innit? Reminds me of, what was that fucking film? It was like soldiers. It's always soldiers. What were they called? Argonites or something. What was the guy called? You had Chip Hazard. I'm Captain Chip Hazard.
Yes.
And his band of merry men. And then you had the weird
small soldiers.
Toy Soldiers is not
Smells.
that. The plot of that revolves around an all-male boarding school overtaken by terrorists while the authorities remain hopeless. That's what Toy
boarding
Soldiers
school.
is. Yeah.
Just like eating. Oh, Daddy, the Taliban are here and they've taken over the squash club, Daddy.
It's in Barranquilla, Colombia. So it's actually
Daddy, they want us to eat halal beef this year, Daddy. Pheasants isn't halal, apparently.
No, mate, this is from 1991, so this is Middle Eastern terrorism.
Right, nice.
So Small Soldiers is the movie we're thinking of. They're called Gorgonites.
Gorgonites. There we
That's
go.
it. Shout out Gorgonites. What was the main dude called?
So you've got Major Chip Hazard is the platoon leader of the Commando Elite. For the Gorgonites, you've got Archer.
Archer. Yeah, my
What
guy.
a geezer.
I used to have a big model of Archer, like a toy like this, and he used to fire his little gun.
That's sick.
So they were peaceful, weren't they? They were just trying to seek
they
refuge.
just wanted to vibe.
They were nice
man.
ones.
They weren't.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch that. I'm gonna watch that this week. The Saigonites fell in love with it, and Hao Ma became a cornerstone of local street food culture. Where, happy to say, that it still thrives to this day. Yeah. Again, a quote that I found from, actually, this was from a Vietnamese newspaper that I put the name of the restaurant in Saigon and managed to find an article. I don't remember if it was a few articles, but I managed to find a couple of articles and translate it. And this is a quote this is a review, essentially, from someone who went there in this news article. And this is what they had to say about Hao Ma.
Famous breakfast spot, and for good reason. The Bánh Mì au plat, is that right? Bánh Mì au plat is the best I have ever had. Came piping hot and so fresh, loaded with toppings, and the deep fried Vietnamese pork roll was delicious.
Mm-hmm.
It's a glowing review.
Yeah.
So I think Bánh Mì au plat has got an egg in there as well, I believe.
Oh, really?
Fried egg.
Runny yolk down your chin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. But Hao Ma wasn't the only place serving up this new delight, by not by any stretch of the imagination. Around the same time, another northern migrant known as Mr. Lee had a clever setup. Instead of a shop, Mr. Lee used a basket full of banh mi and a motorized bicycle to reach customers all over the city.
Wow.
So he can do it. Why can't I?
Well, he's not eating as he's driving. He's focusing
He probably does.
He's
You're kidding
focusing.
yourself if you don't think that he has his lunch whilst he's delivering. Come on now.
Come on now.
Come on.
You know.
Come on.
He's not pulling over to eat. He's getting it done on the go.
No, this is
Could be
classic.
on something.
This is classic Vietnamese hustle. Adaptable,
Yeah.
mobile, and able to feed people wherever they were. He came to you. He brought the baguettes to you, babe.
Oh my God. This is like pre-Deliveroo, pre-Just Eat. This guy's
Yeah.
doing it ground up.
Yeah, exactly. He had all sorts of different sandwiches that he was peddling. One of them was called Bánh Mì Cha, which is Vietnamese sausage that's made from ground pork, garlic, and kind of fish sauce. Super simple, just those kind of couple ingredients. Really, really addictive. So he'd zip through the streets of Saigon, bringing a taste of north to the homesick northerners who had kind of moved south, fleeing the
Oh, nice.
communist regime.
True businessman. He's seen a gap in the market there, a need for a specific product, and he's answering that need.
Definitely. Another quote that I managed to find from a Vietnamese website features a quote from Mr. Lee's great-great-grandson. And this is what he had to say talking to a local newspaper back in 2013.
Mr. Lee started selling bread in the 1950s and then stopped around 2003. Then Mr. Lee's relative, Mr. Hugh, and his son started selling, and now it's my turn.
So I think maybe it's not his great-great-grandson, it must be his great-great-nephew, because I think what's happened is Mr. Lee's brother or Mr. Lee's brother-in-law or something like that. Yeah, exactly. He's taken over. But it's still in the family, which is nice.
Similar recipe that they're using, and
Yeah.
don't fix what's not broken.
Absolutely. So in the Gia Dinh province, another vendor started adding their own twist, selling sandwiches filled with pha lao, which is like a rich soy braised pork stew. Sounds fucking good, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of like a steak kind of sandwich with like maybe some like caramelized onions, achieving that sort of same.
Yeah, like a hot umami thing going on. Because I don't know, like all the banh mi's that I've had, I think have been cold. Even when they've been like, when I've had barbecue pork belly in them, they've not been like roasting hot, the pork belly. It's been kind of just warm.
Yeah.
It's always felt like I'm eating a cold sandwich. I've never really had a hot one before. And then, I didn't realize there's one, like you said before, where they put an egg on it, and this one that's got like a proper stew on there. It's interesting.
I think the ones that I had in Vietnam were warm. I think I remember.
Were they?
Yeah.
Yeah. The ones I had were warm.
Like the bread was warm. And like obviously the pickles weren't warm inside. But like
Yeah, they're definitely brewing up a big pot of warm pickled cucumber. Just bubbling away. Slap some in.
Oh God. No, but these are making me hungry. These all sound so good. I feel like they're just, the Vietnamese know what to do with flavour.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And this, obviously horrendous for these people being forced out of their, the place they called home. But this is very much kind of northern roots to southern, the moulding of kind of northern roots and southern kind of adaptations. It's a symbol of very much like a country divided yet united in a way, because you've got these flavours coming down from the north, moulding with the south, and got different kind of cooking techniques coming together, and they're all just being utilised in different forms of banh mi. It's great.
Yeah.
Right. Single crusty baguette, bringing a country together. What's it?
It's doing a lot of work, isn't it? Just for a bit of
Absolutely.
bread.
So by the late 1950s, Saigon was alive with the sounds of a city on the move. Street food became a daily essential, and banh mi vendors quickly found their place in the bustling streets. You see, these vendors were a lifeline for people from all walks of life. From students, workers, street kids, whatever you were, banh mi was a blessing. Cheap, filling, and far tastier than you'd expect for a few coppers.
Just quickly on just street food in general. Street food is a proper cultural thing in Southeast Asia, isn't it? Like, and in Thailand and places like that. In a way that it isn't in Europe. And I guess that's to do with the weather, really, isn't it? Like when it's so nice and warm outside, why would you kind of eat indoors and in aircon with artificial light? Is that it? Is that what it is? It's just like it's just nicer to be outside and eat food in these countries.
That's a big thing, but also space is also a big thing. Like a lot of people live within these cities, probably don't have a big kitchen.
Yeah, that's true actually.
So cooking up a massive pho is just not going to be doable at home. So you just go out because someone's got a massive vat on the side of the street that's just boiling constantly pho, right?
Yeah, and it's cheap as well, isn't it?
And it's cheap, fucking so cheap. So cheaper to
it's like, why would you
buy ingredients.
Yeah,
exactly.
Why would you invest in a kitchen or in an apartment that's bigger that has a kitchen when you could just live where you are? Exactly. It's convenient and you can just go and get stuff.
And like because of the size of the apartments as well, a lot of people, yes, they don't have the kitchen, massive kitchens, but they also don't have massive dining rooms. So there's no kind of communal space really for them to relax, eat, watch TV. They're doing most of it out on the street.
Yeah. That's why I feel a bit kind of weird when people say they go to these countries and then they're like, yeah, I didn't try the street food. I just didn't want to do that. And I'm thinking that's almost the
you've missed out
50% of the entire culture that you've just decided not to take part in.
It's part of the fun, not eating the food and trying not to get ill. Part of the fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of these vendors became local icons, as you can imagine, known by their calls or the clatter of their bicycles in the early morning. With fillings from eggs to pork to tofu, the banh mi was adaptable to every taste.
It's like the Vietnamese ice cream man. When you hear them coming, you're really excited.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's banh mi's instead of 99 whips.
We could start a little banh mi truck, I reckon.
We should buy an ice cream van, rebrand the outside of it, and drive around and deliver banh mi's off. Be great.
Where are we going to make a bread though? That's the only problem.
Yeah,
like a proper bread oven.
So we'll have like a little unit somewhere.
Maybe you do that.
Some industrial site.
Me and Dom will go out in the van. You just stay and make bread constantly.
Bread boy. Milo, the bread boy.
Just stick me in a fucking industrial site making bread all day while you guys are out.
Milo, we're in for the bread. Don't talk to us. Just give us the bread. Shut up. We're going back out.
There's an idea there. I think.
Yeah, there is something.
I agree. So one well-loved vendor known as Ong Banh Mi roamed the streets from dawn till dusk, serving sandwiches until his basket was empty. Locals would say,
when you hear Ong Banh Mi, you know it's time to eat.
It's time to eat. When you hear me move my feet, here I am.
Yes.
In the street.
Local legend. Became a local legend, not only for his banh mi, but for everyone remembering. But this guy went above and beyond. He remembered everyone's favourite fillings. Just like a coffee order, like a very good barista that just, remembers what you're
usual.
ordering.
What would you like to eat? Is what he says to his customers.
No, he doesn't. The whole point is that he doesn't say that because he already knows.
Exactly. He knows.
He goes, I know what you want to eat, and gives them it.
And then he gives it to them. And they're like, oh, no, actually, I want something different.
Yeah, I was in the mood for
But that's
something else.
what you had last time. And I assumed that's what you're always going to want. You never want variety. I assume that you want what you always ordered the first time.
Never assume makes an ass out of you, me, and my banh mi.
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
So this era of banh mi on wheels turned the sandwich into a chameleon of flavours. Vendors started packing them with pork belly, Chinese char siu, lemongrass chicken, said fried eggs, even sardines.
Ooh.
All the while keeping the essential pickled vegetables and herbs that made it unmistakably Vietnamese. You're not a fan of sardines, Tom?
Not with
not a
fucking
fan.
pickled vegetables and pate. Nah.
It's a very fatty umami fish, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can imagine.
Yeah, and you keep the heads on as well,
things.
so you get a bit of crunch as well.
Whoa. Okay, now.
Well, they're only little, aren't they? You're not taking the heads off a sardine.
Right. Look.
Yeah, when they come in
do.
the tin. When they come in the tin, you just.
No. When I have sardines, when they're in the tins, they ain't got heads on.
If you're that confident of it, make me a sardine banh mi that you think is actually going to be tasty, and I'll
do.
tell
bring
you
it
if
to the pub
it's any
today.
good. Nah, don't do that. I don't want to be sat at the pub eating a fucking fishy fucking sandwich.
Yeah.
Everybody's
Wait.
going to be looking at me like, what's he doing?
Yeah. So the culture's very much there. You know, each vendor's got their own unique twist, often a secret sauce. Recipes are being passed down through generations or kind of tweaked to stand out. Then things don't go so well. So Vietnam, obviously, shit starts going down. Some horrendous shit starts to happen kind of within the 1960s, 1970s. The Americans are involved. There's obviously the Vietnam War. Some really bad stuff. This isn't a podcast on the Vietnam War or the fall of Saigon or anything like that. The rest of history, shout out to the rest of history. They do a really good 2-part episode on the fall of Saigon. Recommend you go and listen to that. Load of bad shit happens. Essentially, the fighting between the communist North and the democratic South gets quite heated, more than heated.
Heated with napalm.
Going to say the understatement of the year. It got a little bit heated, a little bit more than words were exchanged, and neither side was really happy.
So much ordnance is put on the jungles of Vietnam and Cambodia. But yeah, the rest is history. Do a really good podcast on it. Anyway, the long and short of it is the Americans get fucked over by the Vietnamese. They absolutely wet them up. And there's a Watergate. The Watergate scandal happens in America, which forces Nixon to focus more on life on within America itself.
Yeah.
They get everybody, all the Americans, out of Vietnam. They evacuate the embassy. There's this crazy scene where choppers are flying into Saigon, picking up the rest of the people from the embassy and the South Vietnamese people that worked for the embassy and blah, blah, blah. Horrendous scenes. One of the craziest things that happened, that they talk about in this Rest is History podcast that you should go listen to, was around Operation Baby Lift. Have you guys heard this before?
No. Operation Baby Lift.
So it was planes that they sent in to evacuate Vietnamese kids from southern Vietnam. One of the attempts was an American plane picked up 260 plus Vietnamese orphans from South Vietnam. They fitted 3 of them to a seat. So it's packed full, this plane.
I think I've seen some pictures of these.
Yeah.
Flights,
Well, anyway, the plane ended up malfunctioning and the pilot was forced to make a crash landing in a rice paddy. 138 people, orphans, were killed.
Oh my God.
138 people were killed, 78 of which were children, 35 were defence staff. But yeah, this is the backdrop for what's happening. Horrendous shit. Load of really bad stuff's happening.
And the Americans, like, just obviously without going too far into it, because we could do like a 3-parter on this alone, but were they trying to fight off the kind of communist element of Vietnam? Yeah. Is that what it was? And try and...
They were using it as a buffer, yeah, because they thought that if Vietnam fell to the communist regime, that the rest of Asia would quickly fall. And
it's sort of like that gateway that we were talking about before, how good the French thought that it was like a gateway to Asia. The idea was if it becomes communist and they're kind of controlling the flow of culture, information and ideology.
It's the exact same reason why they dropped the nuclear bombs on Japan, because they wanted to end the war quickly, so before the Russians got there, because the Russians were advancing from the north into Japan and were quickly gaining territory, so they wanted to get the surrender from the Japanese first so that they could get in there and stop the Russians. Communists.
It's just all trying to protect that kind of democracy and capitalism way of life.
Us bloody humans and our ideological views, eh?
Yep, need good. But yeah, it goes without saying that during this time, there's a lot of people fleeing and a lot of people on the move. And as we've already seen, when people are on the move, they carry with them only the essentials and the memories of home. And luckily for us, or for the world, I suppose, one of those memories was banh mi. Obviously, with these kind of northern Vietnamese, now the country is unified under the northern Vietnamese, they're very much nationalist in terms of like, we have our own culture. This is how we're going to live from now on. So again, banh mi sandwiches became quite a luxury item.
A treat.
A treat, exactly, for a few years. But it's not until kind of the 1980s, that the doi mui market reforms led to a renaissance in the banh mi. So it's kind of, there's like a period where I think there's just a real upheaval within Vietnamese culture. A lot of kind of ideologies are being thrown around, a lot of like change is happening. And I think banh mi just kind of falls down the wayside a little bit.
Got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, exactly. Bigger fish to fry, but also I think the economy's fucked as well because the South was being propped up heavily by the Americans, and the Americans just left. So yeah, it falls by the wayside. It's quite a
luxurious thing, isn't it? You've got this bread that's quite difficult to make in that climate. It takes a lot of love and care. Then you put in pate on there. Then you've got all this finely sliced variation of different things that you've then pickled, and it's like there's a bit of finesse that goes into making a banh mi, isn't there? That, like you said, is quite easy to sideline when you've got more important shit to think about.
Yeah, for sure. So that's happening in Vietnam itself. Elsewhere over the globe, you've obviously got a lot more Vietnamese migrants fleeing kind of their home country, especially those that either worked for Americans or worked as a hotel porter within a hotel in Vietnam that Americans frequented. If you think about it, think how many porters, cleaners or whatever just one hotel had that was frequented by Westerners. Yeah. They all have families, those people, and they all want to get their families out of Vietnam and flee because they think the northern Vietnamese are going to fuck them up for working with the Americans and the Westerners.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of
traitors and stuff.
Exactly. There's a lot of immigrants. So you've got Vietnamese moving all over the world and kind of forming large communities in the US, France, Australia, Canada, and the UK. And as we know, life in a new country, it's not easy. Language barriers, economic hardship, getting your foot in the door with the jobs and things like that. It's difficult. But for some, food became their lifeline. A way to preserve their culture and make a living. As we saw with the Chinese immigrants that came over during the gold rush. And what episode was it? It was
Chop Suey.
Chop Suey. Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. Exactly.
I'm a massive fan of the What the Food podcast, so I know all the lore, don't worry.
Yeah, no, you're right there. Right there. So you've got these Vietnamese immigrants setting up small banh mi shops, Vietnamese restaurants, and they're starting to introduce their neighbours to uniquely Vietnamese food.
But like you said, it's an accessible thing for them to do. It's like if shit hits the fan, we still know how to make banh mi, and we can sell that in this new country.
I think it's quite palatable as well, right? It's not for Westerners. I mean, like.
Yeah, it's not that crazy. It's not crazy, is crazy. Yeah. Like there's a bit of an exotic taste, but realistically,
it's a sandwich. Probably some funky
flavors. Yeah, probably by the fact that it is based on a Western baguette.
Yeah,
right. It kind of opens the door to be like, oh, that looks familiar. I'll give that a try. Ooh.
Exactly. Yeah, if you were to place a banh mi and a bao bun in front of a Westerner who'd never seen any of Asian food before, they gravitate towards the baguette, right? Because it's
a sandwich to them.
To try it. It's a sandwich to them, exactly.
Yeah.
So in California, banh mi shops began popping up in cities like Los Angeles and San Jose, especially in places like Little Saigon, where Vietnamese American communities grew. Each bakery brought its own twist. One might specialize in homemade pate, another in marinated grilled pork, much like in Vietnam itself, with each new bakery and food truck, banh mi evolved, taking on local flavors. One success story that we have is from Lee Van Lack and his wife, who were one of the first people to open up a Vietnamese bakery in San Jose. Times were tough at first, getting their start and getting people through the door. But their banh mi soon became a favourite for students drawn to its fresh ingredients. Their cold-cut banh mi thit nugi became a local hit, and this is what Lee's wife had to say.
At first, we didn't know what to sell because we couldn't make Vietnamese cakes right away, so we only sold Mexican burritos and tacos, Chinese omelettes, and at most, Vietnamese sandwiches.
So they're having to start off selling whatever would sell, essentially, and then slowly starting to add in the
she says at most Vietnamese sandwiches, so it's like that's just like a side thing that they're doing. They're probably selling like only a couple of those a day.
Exactly.
It's not quite kicked off yet.
Today, Lee's Sandwiches has over 50 locations across multiple states, 900 employees, and more than 50 different sandwich fillings.
Wow.
Yeah, really cool to see. Really cool. So banh mi didn't just take root in California either. Vietnamese communities in Texas, New Orleans, and even Montreal each added their own spin. In New Orleans, the bánh mì earned the nickname the Vietnamese po' boy. It was served on New Orleans-style French bread, which is a bit softer, but it's still packed with the kind of pickled crunch and herbs.
I was going to say, New Orleans has already got the French sprinkle, so you know.
That's it. And then the Montreal one's just got poutine on it.
She's got poutine, yeah.
Chips.
In a baguette.
Cheese curds and gravy. in a French baguette. Done.
So as bánh mì started to spread to these unexpected places, it drew curious eaters beyond the Vietnamese community. Vietnamese chefs began experimenting with flavors that would appeal locally, from teriyaki chicken bánh mì to tofu bánh mì for vegetarians.
Barbecue beef brisket.
Barbecue
Bánh mì. Come on now. Barbecue beans.
At what point does it just become a sandwich, though?
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
When you start stripping out the Vietnamese fillings, it's just a baguette with your local filling in.
It's just a sandwich, isn't it? Yeah.
Sack off this banh mi bullshit, man. Just put some fucking pork in it, man. Normal. For it to be a banh mi, it has to have those kind of like pickled vegetables.
Yeah.
It's got to have the coriander, the kind of aromatics.
Agree.
Like you said, otherwise it's just a baguette then, isn't it?
Just a baguette in it. But today, banh mi shops are a very familiar sight for New York and kind of Melbourne. Not that familiar. Well, here in York, we don't really have a banh mi shop. We have we have Vietnamese. We have restaurants that sell Vietnamese food, but we don't have a banh mi place, which I feel is maybe missing.
Yeah,
from York.
yeah.
No, I think
Leeds do.
Leeds do.
Leeds
Banh and me.
Yeah.
In Kirkgate Market. Banh and me. What a good name, eh?
Well,
it is good as well, that one.
Yeah,
I like that one.
It
but this is the thing, though. They don't just sell banh mi, do
Banh
they?
me. No, they do.
They do curries and things.
varieties,
Why?
Yeah.
Why do they do that? Why don't they just really nail down the banh mi and do different types of banh mi?
Well, it's a market, isn't it? People go there for choice.
I guess, yeah. There was a place in London, in Soho, that I used to go to. I think it was called Saigon Street Food. And it was.
Yeah, I'm sure
great.
I went there with you one time when I came down to visit you in London.
Did you? Yeah, we might have done.
I vaguely remember sitting across the table eating a banh mi with you.
Yes, yeah. It was really nice, that place.
You guys have had banh mi's without me?
All the time.
We always meet up for a banh mi.
Banh mi Mondays.
Come Milo, it's banh mi day. Don't tell Andy.
The sandwich has become comfort food for a new generation of Vietnamese Americans. A taste of heritage shared with friends and neighbours. It evolved very much from the French colonial influence, and it's become a powerful symbol of Vietnamese immigrant story. Adaptable, yet true to its roots. I managed to find a really crass piece of writing from an American journalist, Calvin Trillin, but I think it captures it quite well. Quite crass, like I said, but I think it captures it quite well.
The banh mi sandwich is really the only good argument for colonialism.
It's not great, but I can see what he's trying to say.
Yeah, I think he's trying to say it's like one of the positives that came from it, right? I mean, maybe, mate, but equally, think about what they could have cooked up if we weren't there fucking them about for the last 200 years. How's about that one?
Yeah.
There is no good argument.
No,
it's
there
just
is no.
that is like just something that was born from it that is a silver lining.
Yeah, no, definitely. So there you have it, the story of banh mi. A sandwich it's more than just bread and fillings, It's a culinary time capsule of French influence, Vietnamese creativity, and the resilience of people who've endured occupation, conflict, and displacement. What began as a symbol of colonial power was transformed into something completely Vietnamese, filled with fresh herbs, pickled vegetables, and flavours that made an import into an original. As the old Vietnamese saying goes, if you want to know a place, taste its food. With banh mi, you're tasting Vietnam's past and its enduring connection between food and identity. So the next time you grab yourself a banh mi, savour the flavours and the story they tell. It's more than a sandwich. It's a journey from colonial Saigon to every corner of the world. Symbol of resilience wraps up in a baguette.
I'm a bit of that. Banh mi.
Banh mi. Well, ever since, we started the podcast, I've always kind of looked forward to the day that we do banh mi, just because I knew it was, the French influence on the Vietnamese, but still I didn't realize how kind of like interesting that story was and the kind of different layers to it.
Yeah.
It's good just to get into it, isn't it? And really understand it.
Definitely. I feel like there definitely will be, there'll be more sources on the Vietnamese side out there and more recorded history on the journey from the Vietnamese perspective, I think. It's just super difficult for us English speaking folk to find those sources. And whilst we managed to find a few in the course of this, doing the research for this, there's probably loads of people out there that we should have tapped into for information and for quotes and things like that. But I don't speak Vietnamese, so it's fucking difficult to find.
Yeah,
well,
it's hard.
Just go and fucking learn it, mate. Like, honestly, I can't be arsed with you half-assing this podcast research any longer. Right. I'm just calling you out on it.
Well, the sign of a good episode is when you come away from it wanting to eat what we've been talking about, and I definitely have a hankering for a banh mi right now.
Might be getting a delivery all the way from Leeds. Mate, you don't mind just driving over here, do you?
Oh, well, there you go, banh mi. Thank you very much for sticking to the end. I hope you guys enjoyed that.
Shout out Sarah once again for the
shout out Sarah,
the idea for the episode.
Yeah.
Bloody love you, Sarah.
Treat yourself to a banh mi.
Yeah.
Treat yourself to a banh mi. Sarah got in touch with us on email. She emailed at whatthefoodpodcast@gmail.com. You can do the same. Chat to us on there. We'll do our best to respond. And if you suggest a dish, we'll take a look at that.
Shout you out.
Feel free to follow us on the socials as well. We're on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, posting things on there. And the best thing you can do for us, if you really wanted to help us out, would be to give us a rating wherever you listen to the podcast. You can give ratings on Spotify nowadays, and you can do it on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and all the rest of them. Giving us a rating really helps us show up in other people's feeds, and that is really helpful for us if you can do that.
Don't leave us a review on Google Podcasts because it doesn't exist anymore.
Does it not? Has it gone?
I think they got rid of it.
That's finito. I'm plugging something that doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
With that, good.
Next episode, what are we covering, Andy? What can we tease?
Well. Have you ever wondered what snacks fueled 80,000 roaring Romans as they cheered on gladiators, lions, and, unsuspecting blokes in a bear costume?
Ooh,
okay. All right.
So in our next episode, we're heading into the Colosseum to uncover the ancient Roman food scene. From honey-drenched pastries to garum-drenched everything. We'll dive into the grub, the gore, and the grandeur of Rome's ultimate day out.
Oh my God.
So grab your toga and prepare for a feast of history.
That sounds bloody great. The Romans, the Colosseum, gladiator,
everything.
All that stuff.
Scraps and scrans, my two favourite things.
Oh, buzzing. That sounds amazing.
It does.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Well, stick around for that next episode. All right. Well, thank you very much for listening once again, and we'll see you soon for the next episode. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.